Our first reading is from Ecclesiastes chapters 1 and 2. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. I, the teacher, when king over Israel and Jerusalem, applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to human beings to be busy with. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and see, all is vanity, and a chasing after wind. I hated all my toil in which I had toiled under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to those who come after me. And who knows whether they will be wise or foolish? Yet they will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned and gave my heart up to despair concerning all the toil of my labors under the sun, because sometimes one who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave all to be enjoyed by another who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. What do mortals get from all the toil and strain with which they toil under the sun? For all their days are full of pain, and their work is a vexation. Even at night their minds do not rest. This also is vanity. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Please read responsively with me Psalm 49, verses 1 through 12. Hear this, all you people. Give ear, all you who dwell in the world.
You and I agree in all, rich and poor together.
My mouth shall speak of wisdom, and my heart shall meditate on understanding.
I will incline my ear to a proverb, and set forth my riddle on the heart.
Why should I be afraid in evil days, when the wickedness of those at my heels surrounds me?
The wickedness of those who put their trust in their own prowess, and boast of their great riches.
One can never redeem another, or give to God the ransom for another's life.
For the ransom of life is so great that there will never be enough to pay it.
In order to live forever and never see the grave.
For we see that the wise die also, like the dull and stupid they perish, and they live well to those who come after them.
Their graves shall be their homes forever, their dwelling places from generation to generation, though they had named lands after themselves.
Keeping the law honored, they cannot live forever. They are like the beasts that perish.
The second reading is from Colossians chapter 3. So if you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth, for you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, whatever in you is earthly, fornication, impurity, passion, evil, desire, and greed, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming on those who are disobedient. These are the ways you also once followed when you were living that life. But now you must get rid of all such things: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and abusive language from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have stripped off the old self with its practices, and have clothed yourselves with the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge according to the image of its Creator. In that renewal there is no longer Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave and free, but Christ is all and in all. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The Holy Gospel is according to St. Luke, the 12th chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Friend, who sent me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do, for I have no place to store my crops?" Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich towards God. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. And let us pray. Gracious Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of each heart here be acceptable in your sight, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. A speaker by the name of Danny Cox tells a story of when he and his wife went to Africa and they took a hot air balloon ride. And he said when they were up there, they looked down and they saw a bunch of wildebeest running frantically across the plain. And then suddenly they all stopped and they looked around like they were confused. And so he asked their guide, what was going on? Why did the wildebeest suddenly stop? And the guide told them this: wildebeest have very short memories. And they will take off at the slightest startle and run and run and run until they stop suddenly because they've forgotten why they were running. Well, lions have very good memories. And so what they will do is they will just leisurely follow the herd until they stop, and then it's dinner time for the lions. Those poor, forgetful wildebeest. Can you imagine running and running and running and running and running and then forgetting why you're running in the first place? Have you ever lived like that? Yeah. Frantically running here and there, but forgetting what you're running after. I suspect that's what's going on in our parable today with this wealthy landowner that Jesus tells us about. The man was a hard worker, and he had a lot to show for it. His crops yielded so much that he had to tear down his old barns and build new ones so that he could fit all the crops in it. He figured that when he got finished with those new barns and got everything stored away, he'd take time to relax then. He would take time for himself. He would take time to eat, drink, and be merry. And just when he thinks that time has arrived, just when he thinks that he can really start enjoying life, God comes to him and says, "You fool, tonight your soul is required of you." We don't have to read into this story that God was taking this man's life. Maybe God came to him simply to warn him. You think you're living life, but you're missing out. What you're running after has no real value. What you are treasuring can be taken from you in a single moment, and then what do you have at that point? Patrick Morley wrote The Man in the Mirror, and he asks this same question in a different way. He has people asking, who will be crying at your funeral? Morley and his wife were successful in their businesses. Their schedules were filled with all kinds of responsibility. Their calendar was so full that they wondered how they would get it all done. But one night, they decided to take that calendar and prioritize everything based on who would be crying at their funerals. Those things that helped others or showed others that they cared took priority in their lives, and what they found is that by living that way, their lives were so much more enjoyable and meaningful. Sometimes we're so busy plowing the earth, planting the seeds, tending to the weeds, so busy running and running and running that we forget to stop and live. A full calendar doesn't mean that we're living. In fact, sometimes a full calendar means the exact opposite, that we are not living. Life isn't about how much we accomplish. Life isn't about accumulating things. Life isn't even about eating, drinking, and being merry. The man in our parable thought all of these things, and God calls him a fool. Life is about who will cry at our funerals. It's about the relationships we build, the lives we touch, the difference that we make in the seconds and the minutes and the hours that we are gifted with. Life is about being loved by God and others, and it's about loving God and others with all that we are. So I want you to think about it. You know, when you are in the last moments of your life, what will be going through your mind? No, seriously, his final words actually were, "If only I had spent more time in the office. I only regret not spending more time on the internet." She says she wishes she'd cleaned more surfaces. "I only wish I had played more video games. I should have bought more crap. My only regret is that I didn't beat inflation plus 2.5%. If I have but one regret, it is that I wish I had played more Candy Crush Saga. I wish I had spent more time responding to emails." Work and school, they're not bad. Giving your best to certain activities like games and music and sports aren't bad. Eating, drinking, and being merry aren't bad. It's only when we forget that they aren't everything that they lead to death. When things start crowding out people, when commitments become an end in themselves rather than a means to enjoy or serve others, when life becomes about getting instead of giving, it becomes empty. You know, who will be crying at your funeral? Time is the greatest gift that God has given us. And it's also the gift that we squander the most. Will you have spent your time running and running, but with no purpose? Will you have spent your time in competition, stepping over others to get what you want in order to be number one? Will your closets overflow and your kids be crying at your funeral, but because they have to deal with the mess that you're leaving them? Or will the room be filled with the friends you've made? The people you loved and lived with, the co-workers who mourn the one who never saw them just as another number or someone to be used? Will the room be filled with the people whose lives you touched, the people you served with and were served by? You know, it sounds so simple, and yet it is so hard. It's hard because it's so tempting to live for ourselves, to focus on getting the nice house or the nice car or that little extra something for the kids. It's so tempting to only look out for number one because we convince ourselves that no one else is going to look out for us. But all of these things are empty. They're empty running that in the end robs us of life. So God's voice calls out to us today. Choose life. Don't be like the wildebeest who forget and die. Life isn't about the running. It's about whom you're running with. It's about being in the moment with the people who are with you. It's about treating others with respect and honor, even when we've made mistakes together. So think about it for a moment. In the moments of your life, in those last moments, what will be going through your mind? How can you change how you use the seconds and the minutes and the hours today so that that bubble is not filled with regrets, but with thankfulness? Thank you, Lord, for the life I was blessed to live. Spend time tilling and planting and weeding. But while you're at it, don't forget to smell the roses. You know, they are all around you in the people who are around you. And as you leave here, hear God's voice continually calling you back to places like this so that you can never forget the reason that you're running. Amen.